Hello everybody, it's Friday, April 12th, and that means it's time to talk about the Misfit of Demon King Academy, Season 2, Cour 2. I hope that you guys are as excited as I am because I cannot wait to discuss this episode with you. Let's get this started. Before we really get going, I want to make sure that I make something clear, and that's that I actually haven't seen all of the episodes for Season 2's first half yet. I'm a bit behind because I've been doing so much to get this channel running, and I wanted to make sure that I had certain things in order. So if I have anything off in my information, based off of what I talk about here, I apologize for any confusion. That said, let's start with the episode right at its very beginning, where we actually see Anos talking to a goddess of creation. I believe her name is Olivia. I could be pronouncing that wrong. But I thought their interaction was very interesting, and I thought that it was really cool to see a bit more about who this character actually was, because apparently she was present when the spell was cast to divide the world, when Anos sacrificed his life to try and bring about peace. And it was very interesting to see how the gods of this world actually seem to be very minimal on emotion and connection, and that they seem to be very precisely about order. And it was interesting to hear about these concepts of the moon of creation and the sun of destruction, and the fact that Anos wanted to destroy the moon of creation because these two things were creating this perpetual cycle of torture and misery for the people who lived in that world. I also like the fact that despite the fact that there was a conflict of sorts between Olivia and Anos, that Anos still behaved in a decent and courteous manner toward her. And that stands very true for how his character seems to be. Anos, if he is actually forced to take action, has zero qualms taking action, but generally speaking, he is a kind and decent person. And it's one of the things that makes him really cool as a demon lord, because he goes against our expectations, but he also meets our expectations when it comes to his ability to do things and to get things done. From there, we realize that this sequence that we've seen is actually a reflection of the past, and we move on to the present. And from a very serious and complex situation that we opened the episode with, we move on to something more funny and lighthearted. We actually get a really cute sequence between Anos and his mom and Misha, something very reminiscent of what we would have seen in Season 1. And it's very cute to see how, despite how everything is gone and how much that Anos has grown in the, oh my gosh, it's only been 6 months since he actually reincarnated, that despite all of this, he is still very deeply connected to his family. And I'm glad to see his mom, and I'm sure his dad as well, still adding a warm and comedic touch to the series that allows it to take itself seriously when the time is right, but also to utilize Anos' family and friends to show us his humanity despite the fact that he is the Demon King of Tyranny. And it was really adorable because they reference like just how much this family is like warm and loving and everything toward each other. And of course we get a joke about Anos wanting gratin because he always wants mushroom gratin. It's just a thing. From there, we get another wonderful reference back to Season 1 when Misha and Anos actually go and they decide they're going to wake up Sasha, who is still lounging around in bed despite the fact that it's later in the morning and the day is getting going. So we actually see them appear in Sasha's bedroom, and Sasha is half asleep, and as Anos and Misha talk to her, she is actually talking as though she is awake, even though she actually isn't conscious. And she is all like, aren't you going to take responsibility for this dream? She wants Anos to hold her, and he does. And then she actually wakes up and is like, what are you doing holding me? It was so funny and so cute because the dynamic between these three is really interesting and really unique. I usually hate harems, but in this show, when different girls are interacting with him, it doesn't bother me as much, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first key reason it doesn't drive me right up the wall is that judging their culture by the standards of our culture would make absolutely no sense. So expecting him to actually necessarily care about individual monogamy the way that a human was is kind of silly. We don't really know exactly how demon relationships work, or whether as the King of Tyranny it's completely different for him. Also, the girls never seem to really have a problem with what's going on. We don't really see a lot of situations where the girls are like crazily fighting each other over him. Everybody seems to just chill out and be happy. So I mean, hey, as long as it's working for them, I'm not going to be too upset. On the other hand, though, I will say that it does kind of drive me up the wall as a Misha fan that it's generally Sasha who actually gets interaction with him, and his friendship and connection to Misha generally does seem to be more platonic. I really wish that they had gotten more so together, because the balance between creation and destruction I think would have been more to my liking, but I mean, hey, that's my opinion. And even with that said, I already have a favorite couple in this series, so I'm not terribly upset about this. And speaking of that favorite pairing, Lei and Misha get a couple amazing moments in the episode that I absolutely loved and that I must talk about because they were just, yes please, more of this. The first thing that we see, and this is based off of research and not off of direct watching, I apologize again for that, we see the idea that Misa, in the first half of season 2, I believe, we find out that she is actually capable of potentially destroying Anos, that she has like an alternate form and was potentially created for that purpose. And obviously things have gone down, and obviously something has been done to resolve that situation to a reasonable degree because she's still alive, which is typical Anos behavior if that did happen. But anyway, she's still struggling with having this, whether it's an alternate identity, an alternate form. I didn't quite catch that. But Leia's trying to help her work through the reality that that exists. And actually the thing she ends up telling him that she fears is that she's going to disappoint him and that he isn't going to love her anymore. And he actually very thoroughly reassures her of the fact that that is inconceivable because he loves her and he loves all of her. And I thought that was so precious. We also get to see a really great sequence after that where Shin, who turns out to be Misa's father, shows up and actually ends up having a duel with Lei, where he actually kills Lei, and then of course Lei is revived, because one of the instructions that the students were given when they were in their homeroom during this episode is that they are all going to find out what it's like to die, because the teachers want them to connect with their own sources, which sounds crazy from our perspective, but I mean, these are demons, so the rules are different. The even more interesting aspect of this, even though the fight choreography, let's be honest, was really good. Very, very good. But the thing I really cared about, because I'm me and I'm a romantic, is that when this is happening, Anos shows up and he and Misa are watching the fight. And actually Anos makes it so that Misa can understand the communication that's happening between Lei and Shin through the actual actions of their swords. And it turns out that what's going on is that Lei is actually trying to ask Shin for Misa's hand in marriage. And Shin is like, when you beat me, you can marry my daughter. And it's like, oh no, because Shin is like an amazing swordsman and that is going to be hard as hell. But it was just a really cool sequence, and I really like the fact that we are still seeing stuff about these characters and that their relationship is obviously still progressing, and I like how much more close and how much more clear their relationship is. And I just really loved those characters in season 1, so to see that they are still doing stuff in the second half of season 2 is fantastic. I look forward to, obviously, when I have the time, going back and catching the rest of what I've missed and being able to have a fuller picture. And I apologize for not having that for you guys, but they definitely seem like they are going in the right direction. Okay, enough romantic frou-frou stuff. Let's actually move on to talking about what happens with Anos, his disguise, and the Royalists, because this was some really great characterization for him, and it was just really great seeing those Royalist bastards getting put in their place per usual. First up, of course, we have to recognize the fact that we have this problem where Anos is now actually acknowledged and is known as being the Demon King of Tyranny, so he can't just go to high school and chill out with his friends the way he would have in the past. At least not in his normal form, because everybody would think that is weird. So what does he do? He actually creates an alternate form for himself, and it turns out that it's like of a 6-year-old kid, and the role he is playing is that he is a super genius and he's a transfer student. Now, that in and of itself was really comedic and fun, but what really got me was when they turn around and they use that to make it so that he actually is able to use that form to infiltrate the royals by pretending to befriend a student who is still very supportive of the idea of the royals being in charge and of the mistreatment and like racial segregation of the misfits. So Anos actually ends up going with this guy, finding the leader of the like royal rebellion or whatever the hell they want to call it. And they actually go through a sequence where they try to revive a dragon. They succeed, but the dragon gets stopped and everything. And then what we end up seeing is that Anos puts these collars of magic on these people, where this guy and the kid who brought him to the guy are going to be having this recurring nightmare of their own doom until or unless they actually find a way to convince the royalists to renounce their schemes and to essentially get rid of the prejudice in their hearts. Good luck with that, boys. That's not going to be easy. And if you think that that particular situation was too harsh, here's something on the opposite end of the scale, and I cannot believe this happened because Anos is being nice to a character from season 1 that I absolutely hated. There was this teacher in season 1, I believe her name was either Emile or Amelia, and she was the homeroom teacher that they had at the start of the series. And when we get to the sword tournament that happened in season 1, Amelia actually tries to get Anos' sword from Anos' mum and the basically cheerleading squad that supports Anos in the story. And she seriously beats them up, and it's only through Anos showing up in that setup that they are saved. And Anos actually grabs her in that sequence, and he makes it so that she dies and is reborn as a half-demon. And he makes it so that no matter how many times she might try to kill herself, that she'll always come back as a half-demon. And personally, I thought, okay, that's the end of that. You got what you deserve, bitch. And I thought that was over. But at the ending of this episode, we actually see her approach his throne. How or why she was even there, I don't even know. Like, what on earth? And we actually see her request an audience with him, which he grants. And she asks him to save her. He does say that he will help her, which, given the fact that she was ready and willing to potentially kill his mom, this man has a lot more grace than I would have for somebody who tried to touch my family. I'll tell you that up front. Because holy crap, there's some things you just don't do in this world. But he's actually going to set it up so that she's going to be teaching at the Hero Academy as her half-demon self, which I think is actually a brilliant way to both make her atone for the behaviors that she has held, while also actually granting a path toward being a better person and like moving on with her life, because she's going to get to experience what it is to be the kind of person who would actually be on the receiving end of the bullshit and prejudice that she put the Misfit students through. So that was interesting. Anyway, I think that's all the stuff I've got for you guys on the Misfit of Demon King Academy Season 2, Cour 2 for today. I thought the first episode was really good. I thought it brought up some really interesting new material for her to lead the story forward, and I thought that it tied in beautifully to some of the things that have happened in the past. I thought it did a really great job of connecting that which had happened to things that could be coming in the future. Anyway, if you guys have any thoughts about the episode, please feel free to drop those in the comments below, because I would love to discuss it with you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!